Well, the concept of work for hire is interesting. There's a legitimate version of work for hire, and then there's sometimes an illegitimate version of work for hire. If a composer seeks to be hired for a project and wants to get paid a fee upfront for rendering service and then deliver the work to the employer, as it were, very legitimate. We enter a work for hire agreement. You've agreed to write the music. I've agreed to buy the music. The complication of work for hire comes back to who is the writer of the work of record and who is the publisher of the work of record. In a typical work for hire, the writer would retain his writer interest. Writers would always be known as the writer, be credited as the writer, and would retain all of those streams of income as the writer. The employer would go down and become the publisher. Now that's very legitimate. It happens all the time. It's very acceptable. That's the proper way for work for hires. What does happen, and is a little more unsavory, is this notion of sometimes there are work for hire where an employer would engage a writer, pay him a fee, which is good for a writer, and then the writer would be asked to take his writer credit off and lose his writer credit and lose his writer streams of income. The employer certainly has the right to claim the publishing interests of the song, but it leaves a question mark as to who owns the writer's share and who should it go to. And it's not totally savory that an employer who engages a writer legitimately owns the publisher's share, but then goes ahead and puts his name on as the writer's share. That's not comfortable in the community. So, as I say, work for hire can be a very legitimate tool if the writer retains his writer's share. It gets questionable if the writer's asked to remove his name. The notion of non-writers putting their name to a writer's share happens often. In the film and TV and production communities, it happens very often, where there's ghost writers, just production writers, and there's oftentimes that some of the biggest household names that we know, production entities that we know, engage writers on a work for hire basis. And writers need to make a living. So if you're an up-and-coming starving writer and you are offered a writing contract, whether it's to a TV series or a DVD production, and you're a writer and an employer says, hi, I'm going to pay you $500 a week to write the music, and I'm paying you $500 and you agree to deliver the music and walk away from it, well, a writer certainly has the right to walk away. And depending on their circumstances, they ought. Now, I'm not comfortable with the writer walking away from their writer share. The writer share they should stay embedded to. They can certainly walk away from their publisher share. That's the value of publishing and being paid a fee. At this point, there are production companies that simply erase the original writer's name on and put on a different writer's name.